The Pakistani Prime Minister was absolutely skewered. Hello, welcome to Dangerous Policy, a channel aimed at intelligent people wanting to discuss important issues facing life and society. My name is Crispin, and this video is a shout out to my sometimes friend, sometimes enemy, Jonathan Swan. He is the most influential investigative journalist and an interviewer in the world today. I've known him before his shot to fame when he became one of the chief correspondents for Axios during the Trump administration at the White House. He's an Australian journalist who nevertheless has reached the highest echelons of the American media establishment. He is roughly the same age as me, Jewish guy, wonderful pedigree here in Australia. His father is a prominent doctor in the media as well, has guided us through the pandemic, done a great job. And he uncovers things that other people just absolutely fall flat on. And his latest triumph is an interview with the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Imran Khan. Imran Khan is a former cricketer turned politician. He's been part of the Pakistani establishment and elite for many years. And a question was asked by Jonathan Swan.
Last year, you wrote an open letter to leaders of Muslim states asking them to unite against Islamophobia, particularly in the West. Why did you feel the need to write that public letter?
The problem is there's this big communication gap between the Islamic world and the Western societies. It happened after 9/11, when the word Islamic terrorism came into currency. The moment you say Islamic terrorism, the man in the street in the West thinks that there's something in Islam which leads to terrorism, or Islam causes radicalism. After 9/11, anytime some terrorist act went on where a Muslim was involved, the entire 1.3 billion Muslims started becoming targets.
Just across your border in Western China, the Chinese government has imprisoned more than 1 million Uigur Muslims in re-education camps. The Chinese government has tortured Muslims, forcibly sterilized them, and they've destroyed mosques in Xinjiang and also punished Muslims for fasting, praying, even giving Muslim names to their children. Prime Minister, why are you so outspoken about Islamophobia in Europe and the United States, but totally silent about the genocide of Muslims in Western China?
What our conversations have been with the Chinese, this is not the case, according to them.
The evidence is just overwhelming.
Whatever issues we have with the Chinese, we speak to them behind closed doors. China has been one of the greatest friends to us in our most difficult times. When we were really struggling, our economy was struggling, China came to our rescue. So we respect the way they are, and whatever issues we have, we speak behind closed doors. How come this is such a big issue in the Western world? Why are the people of Kashmir ignored? It is much more relevant. Compared to what might be going in the Uighurs, 100,000 Kashmiris have been killed. There are 800,000 Indian troops which have, literally, it's an open prison in Kashmir. 9 million Kashmiris are put there. Why is that not an issue? So I think it's hypocrisy.
They've been a huge partner to you, China, but on some level, doesn't it make you feel sick to have to be quiet because of all this money they're putting into Pakistan?
I look around the world, what's happening in Palestine, Libya, Somalia, Syria, Afghanistan. Am I going to start talking about everything? I concentrate on what is happening on my border, in my country.
This is on your border.
Which is part of, no, that is part of Pakistan. 100,000 Kashmiris are dying. That concerns me more because half of Kashmir is in Pakistan.
This is a grotesquely large human rights atrocity.
First of all, I'm not sure about that because our conversations with the Chinese, this is not the picture that comes from that side.
So just to put a fine point on this, you are not in any way concerned about the Muslim Uighurs in Xinjiang?
Our discussions with Chinese will always be behind closed doors.
As you can see, Jonathan asked Imran Khan, why the hypocrisy? Why do you criticize the West constantly about so-called Islamophobia, but when it comes to China's genocidal abuse of the Uighur Muslims, you're utterly silent? There's also the little kind of Chris knife in that conversation where
I concentrate on what is happening on my border, in my country.
This is on your border.
Which is
and then goes on to mention Syria and Libya and places that are very far away, when in fact, Xinjiang is on the Pakistani border. China is right there, and the Uighur Muslims, are experiencing mass sterilization, re-education, and internment. So Jonathan Swan, his delivery was absolutely superb, and is a question that needs to be asked of not only Pakistan, but a lot of Muslim majority countries. President Erdogan of Turkey is equally to blame. There is a fantastic scholar on Turkish-China relations who wrote his PhD on the relationship. He said that, look, the Uyghur Muslim question does complicate relationships between Turkey and China, but they put that aside for national interest. And Imran Khan all but conceded that. He says, look, China is a great friend of Pakistan, has supported Pakistan in all kinds of ways, and any disagreements we have with China is behind closed doors. No doubt a euphemism for saying we don't care about the Uyghur Muslims because China gives us lots of money. This is true for a number of Muslim majority countries. China's increasing relationship with Iran and massive investment, the revival of the old Silk Road, the Central Asian states that have a lot of Uyghurs within those states, so Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, they are all deepening their relationship with China as well. So there is a considerable amount of hypocrisy in the Islamic world. This whole notion of united Islamic solidarity for their, brothers in China being oppressed is totally false. These countries act in their own national interests, pretty much like any country in the world, and will use, Islamophobic criticisms only of the most open and liberal societies in the world, namely the Western societies, and use it as a partisan tool to beat people over the head. But it actually reflects nothing of what actually happens in their countries. They have their own persecutions of various religious minorities, even various denominations of the Islamic faith, and that is certainly true in Pakistan. And to say that this is all just, Imran Khan said at the beginning that Islamic terrorism became associated with Islam. Well, 15 of the 19 bombers in the September 11 attacks were from Saudi Arabia. And where was Osama bin Laden found? He wasn't found in a cave in the backwaters of Afghanistan. He was found in a compound overwhelmingly protected in Pakistan. And the only way the Americans got to him was by violating Pakistani airspace, not telling the Pakistani government about it because they knew that there were people in the ISI who would tip off Osama bin Laden, and the consequences were grave. We also need to seriously consider the Islamic threat within Pakistan because of the vast and growing nuclear arsenal that's in that country. Originally, the triggers and the bombs were separate, but they have been united and are driven up and down the country constantly because of the threat from India. So you would have heard in that interview with Imran Khan him complaining about Kashmir, the threat of 800,000 Indian troops and so forth. Well, their response to that is to deploy tactical nuclear weapons around the country under the devolved command of their military to be used against advancing Indian troops on their own soil, i.e., potential Islamists can access nuclear weapons on the backs of these trucks that are driven up and down Pakistan on a 24-hour basis, where the triggers and the warheads are already connected, ready for launch. I mean, this duplicity is absolutely absurd. And I think that Jonathan Swan's ability to ask very standard questions, like, why are you talking to this group, but saying the complete opposite or utterly silence on this group, when this group is experiencing at least the same amounts of traumas that the individuals are referring to, or why? Because it's not in his personal interest. And Also skewering China with this. The Chinese government came out recently, I'll show an image, where they criticized the British government's response to a report that said there is no systemic racism in Great Britain. In fact, and this was led by a black man, by the way, of Jamaican descent. The African descendants of Jamaica and West Africa that live in the UK, they have wildly different outcomes and so on. Well, the Chinese government publicly came out and said that report in the UK is concealing the deep-seated racism that's happening in the UK. At the same time, in China, people are being denied service at McDonald's for being black. There's an incredible case in Guangzhou where they're like, we don't serve blacks here in China. The duplicity and double standards and exploitation is extraordinary. We're seeing that with the Xinjiang, with the Uigur Muslims. We're seeing that with the Africans that are in China. We're seeing that with the treatment of Africans in Africa by Chinese companies. And yet, because there are individuals like Imran Khan who get enormous amount of money, they keep silent on it. And it is a true tribute to journalists like Jonathan Swan, who, without being rude, without being aggressive or duplicitous or, you're doing ad hominems or anything like that, just asking the right questions in the right way, are able to get such obvious exposure from these leaders. So great credit to him. Go and check him out in other reports if you can. He's really worth the follow. And if you like this video, please subscribe and hit that like button. Leave your comments down below and I'll see you next time. Thank you so much. Goodbye.